It's the only metal ever to have a planet's name. It is now listed as the most expensive element by countries around the world. The world's proven reserves are only 3,000 tons. Even gold can only be regarded as a younger brother in front of him, as the pal is in nature. Not only three-way catalysis has an irreplaceable important identity. Even the medical field has the mysterious power to make people chew normally. Today we will separate the ore. To extract gold, make the salt into a lip plate and figure it out thoroughly. To understand it all at once, we need to start with the origin. Ranking narrative 46 and Schreiker Russian are collectively referred to as Bose metal, accidentally discovered by the British chemist Wollaston in 1803 in the ore of Bore in South America. Wollaston took the aqua regia mixed with nitric acid and hydrochloric acid to dissolve the mineral, and a variety of metals were separated by reduction reaction, but in the process, a never-before-seen element appears. To commemorate the discovery and nature, Wollaston named it after the asteroid Pallas. It's an element that sounds very strange. As we can see, he's almost non-magnetic, but you hang it on the side with a thin wire. It had a reaction. This phenomenon is called paramagnetism. You can think of it as a bunch of tiny magnets. The magnet bar can rotate but cannot move. Therefore, matter becomes paramagnetic lines of force after being affected by an external magnetic field. The other property of this material is also outstanding in metals. We heat it up to 800 degrees, it reacts with the oxygen, and we start the oxygen splash, and put it in the hydrochloric acid dissolver. It only takes a few minutes to return the once oxidized position to its original color. And the application surface is not just as simple as jewelry, such as scalpels or dentures in the medical field, and integrated circuits, semiconductor device, or capacitor. But the broadest category has to be three-way catalysis in the automotive sector. The essence of this thing is to trap harmful gases such as HC and NOx in the exhaust gas, converted to harmless carbon dioxide by oxygen reduction. Water and nitrogen, and ternary is mainly the three elements of BO-Boss. The key is that the market price of the Boss has long been more than twice that of gold. At this time, the repair shop has long been eyeing ternary. After all, refining is much easier than mining. Now, let's move on to the first step of manufacturing a pure handle. It is mainly a byproduct of the symbiotic sulfide, or, with Ni, often present in the Nirvana mine as trace elements. There are almost no pure ways to exist in nature. So many of the Nirvana mines also have methods of extracting the elements. Once the ore is mined, about to be sent into the roller, the sand is ground to uniform particles by the equipment. Then it comes to the converter and is continuously fired into a liquid state at a constant temperature, and pour it into each mold separately. At this point we have the intermediate product high ice Ni to produce Ni and the target. This thing is worth $500,000. Contains 50% Ni and less than half of the target, by secondary crushing down to the micron level. Let's go to Fuxuan. The so-called lucky selection is the addition of powder state minerals to chemical agents. Let the valuable Ni and the target follow the bubbles to the surface. Larger lumpy particles settle in the pulp. So, you can think of blessing selection as a process of screening and separation. As we can see, the surface is the target. After being concentrated and dried, it becomes a pure target and evil in the hands of workers. But it's not metal yet, because it is also burned with a vulcanizing agent under inert gas at a temperature below the melting point, so that the non-oxides in the ore become oxides. These oxides are transferred during the process of casting metallurgy, solution to extract metals. And the way you live it is you burn these oxides into a liquid. So the electrodes are inserted into the melting furnace. Only here can it dissolve into metal. And pour the melted Nirvana target liquid into the steel film. When the cooling is completed, it will become a rough grind in front of you. And here we have another intermediate. It contains copper in addition to the Nirvana target. The only way to separate it clean is electrolysis. During electrolysis, the alloy is dissolved in the electrolyte as an anode. The platinum is deposited. Through further screening, we get generations of gold mines. This is the crucial second half of pure manufacturing. Now, start making the next product. Put the salt. The salts are roughly classified into chlorination targets. Nitric acid and chlorine acid is often used as a catalyst in the metallurgical process. First, the gold ore will be separately injected with chlorination agent and let one end connect to the device. According to the engineer, this synthesis is highly toxic. If you are not careful, it can be inhaled into the lungs and cause poisoning. This also leaves the factory beauties fully armed. In fact, there are two types of chlorination target preparation. The first is to use concentrated hydrochloric acid to generate an oxidation target by heating. And the second is what we see. Expose the heat directly to the chlorine gas. Will react with chlorine to make a solid yellow or brown material. The concentrated hydrochloric acid used in the early days is not fundamentally different from the current chlorine gas, because hydrochloric acid also contains chloride ions. Both methods end up being chlorination targets. If you really want to make a difference, that is environmental pollution. But for the chemical industry, there's no way to avoid it. And then I'm going to show you the molded salt. And that's the key to making a pure target. Do you know how to separate this yellow clump? In fact, for people who extract ternary catalysis, it's still important, and this material is amine hexachlorophyllate because the elements of the nuclear foil are similar. In the course of experience, the nuclear foil is often processed simultaneously. That is to say, many of them will produce thin compounds during the separation process, and just soluble. Thin and insoluble, amine hexachlorosulfate acts as an intermediate in it to convert a chemical reaction into salt. But don't be deceived by the salt at this time, because the first separation still contains many impurities. For this, it is also put into a chlorination machine to complete the secondary purification, and spellcasting metallurgy will also take place in this step. Like high-temperature treated live metallurgy, spellcasting is more of a process of liquid extraction of precious metals with the help of chemicals in and out. Compared with the live method, the energy consumption is low, and a large number of impurities are avoided. For example, golden targets are basically using spellcasting techniques. In fact, to put it bluntly, the main reason is that the output of this thing is low. After all, it's not as worthless as steel or aluminum. Chemical reactions in spellcasting metallurgy are usually slow, especially the entry and exit phases. The process is very long. Secondly, boiling water treatment in the process of casting metallurgy. It contains not only heavy metals, contains difficult to degrade trace elements such as acids, bases, and salts. Therefore, it is best to live farther away from the chemical plant. Now, we're going to go into the best part of the exercise. Workers will first stack the salt in an annual manner and set it into the furnace to continue burning. This time, and temperature control have strict requirements. The maximum temperature difference cannot exceed the preset required 10 degrees. Knuckle forming. We've got a weird sponge target. From the appearance, the sponge target is somewhat similar to the sponge peptide, and break it into uniform blocks. Then it can be put into the furnace for secondary smelting. The pump is located in a low-pressure oxygen-free space. Vacuum can volatilize impurities, reduce unwanted reactions between oxidation and gases. Therefore, the purity and net con are improved. This is also an obvious characteristic of the vacuum melting process. It melts into shape. We also get to see the real face of this thing. Due to the extremely complex process, the number of fast outputs per time is pitifully small, and it can only be forged by the elderly master himself. Although it doesn't require any skill. But I can't stand it, it's too valuable. You need to know that one piece can be exchanged for a high-end car. 2 pieces can be equivalent to an ordinary house in a second-tier city. Even the host's smile never stopped when he saw him. Today's gold is 545 yuan per gram. It is about 3 times that of gold. Even the scraps are in the tens of thousands. And then it goes through a facelift, so that the nail will be cut evenly and uniformly. At this time, see if it is more beautiful. One piece is exactly about 3 kilograms. The purity has already reached more than 99.98%. And the key is that global annual shipments are only about 2 million tons. That is, Russia alone supplies 40% of the world. I have to say that there are still advantages to a large national territory. Each piece is then weighed individually and engraved on the surface. The detailed specifications will be displayed on this handle. But to say that the most amazing craftsmanship has to be the next one. Can you believe this metal mesh is all made of silk? The point is, it's denser than a bed net. The gaps are consistent. There are no imperfections on the surface. It seems that this is a match with the few titanium submarines in Russia.